Yo, it's Purposefully, and we were able to take second place with my boy Purple Luffy and receive that Serial Shanks card, my first big online tournament. It was an unreal ride. I don't know how it happened, but I'm going to go over the deck list and just share the matchups. I just wanted to document it, and yeah, let's just get right into it.
All right, and now we're going into the deck list. Obviously, we have our leader, whose ability is to pick up your own life, and you get to ramp it on as long as you either have 0 Dawn or 3 or more on the field. Very strong ability, and really the only time that it's going to be meta viable, unfortunately, due to what's coming out in set 6. So I knew I had to get in all of my reps in for set 5. Beginning with the 4 drops, we have 3 Scratchman Apu, a 4/6 vanilla. We're beginning off with these vanillas just because it what makes Luffy such a powerful deck. You're able to, on your second turn, play these 4/6 vanillas and just establish an annoying, dumb idiot on the field faster than your opponent, and they likely have to waste resources to get rid of it. And once you get going, you can just steamroll ahead of your opponent really quickly, start spamming the board once you reach 10 Dawn. This is just like a great way to apply early pressure. Make sure that you aren't swinging at your life too much because you have to be cognizant that if they take too much damage while you're building your board, then they're just going to get blown out. Especially with the looming threat of 9-cost Kaido. Many matchups are scared of that card. So other than that, we also have 4-cost Blocker Law, who on play, Dawn -1, rips 2 cards out of your opponent's hand as long as they have 7 or more cards. Never play this card early, in my opinion, just because you don't want to do the Dawn Mines effect. It is such bait, I feel, to use this card too early. It's strong, but, swinging 7 usually gets 2 cards out of their hand or a life early, so definitely go for vanilla in your starting hand and resist the temptation just to get 2 free cards out. It's usually not worth it. You want to get to 10 Dawn and start dropping 5-cost characters one after the other. Speaking of which, a Dawn minus that can be worth doing going first is we're running 4 of the Magellan. Now, I've seen lists that have cut Magellan from Pluffy altogether, which to me doesn't make sense. I can see the logic in the way that Magellan kind of makes our good matchups even easier. Against Enel, Katakuri, we're already favored. This card really hoses them though, but in a tournament I kind of want to guarantee that I win those matchups. I feel as if this deck isn't as bad into Sakazuki as people say that it is, and Magellan is part of the reason why, in my opinion, because if you play him, try to steal second away from Sakazuki, play this on your second turn by ramping, going to 5, and Dawn -1, they have to waste a lot of resources to bottom deck it, and to be honest, in an ideal scenario for Sakazuki, they play brand new, and then they, Great Eruption, Hound Blaze to bottom deck Magellan so he never gets its effect, but that's a lot of resources for other threats on your board that maybe they then can't remove, or they have to prioritize getting rid of Magellan, and then they leave something like a Blocker Kid up, which does more for our game plan because we can just keep ramping with leader effect, hopefully, early game aggressively, and Dawn -1 when you go second isn't as bad. I say that's probably the only time where you'd want to use maybe Trafalgar Law, ulti page 1 going second on turn 2. It can be strong. It can be strong, but Magellan's definitely, I think, the best and most acceptable time to Dawn minus early game because we want to usually use Poly. So yeah, going second, you can, Dawn minus and then take another life and go back up to 7. But going first, that is not possible. If you do, let's say, Law or Ulti Page 1, then you're going to be stuck at 5, ramping with leader effect to 6. You want to be at 7 for this card. I just think this is the best card in the deck. I don't understand not running any more than, max 4 copies. It's just so strong. Removing a body on board that your opponent usually has to play, unless they're just stacking all their Dawn, not establishing anything, but you're going to get usually free pop unless it's a Borsalino blocker, which is worst case scenario. But I just love this card. Gets you to 10 very efficiently and makes your going first curve really something your opponent can just slowly realize they have no control over the game and you just start swinging for big numbers. Next, we're going to go to the 5-cost blockers. First, starting off with Queen. You cannot really replace this card. It's just so good being able to go through your deck cycle. It's basically a +1. Such a needed card in this deck where you don't have any searchers, so having something like Queen can help you fix your hand and get a 5/6 body, as well as uses Captain Kidd. Amazing effect if you're able to combo it with some of your Dawn minus. You're playing with 11 Dawn, you have a blocker that's 6,000 power. This card is everything, even has 1k counter, which I don't even know if it needed because that effect is so good for purple decks. It's going to be a staple moving forward. Moving on, here's just kind of, I don't know if you can call it a tech, but the One of King, another way to remove a 4-cost body. In an ideal world, you can play King while you have Captain Kidd up, so you can still play another 5-cost because you ramp back up one. 7,000 power is very strong, obviously. And then also, what I was thinking that for Sakazuki, establishing a 6-cost character is a lot more awkward to deal with. The main game plan against Sakazuki, I guess to spoil it, is just to play as many 5-drop characters as you can, as often as you can, and eat at their board if they turn their character sideways. If not, you're just pressuring that life, getting their hand size down low. It's not a big deal if you don't get their life extremely low in the beginning, just because it's more important that they don't have any cards to combo with. You don't want them to, Rob Lucci 2-for-1 your board. It's going to happen, but then hopefully they run out of Ice Ages, they can't find cost reduction, they're stuck with maybe only cost reduction, and King just lets them, or I would say it lets us get away with more because you have to waste more resources on this one body and to remove something. So even getting rid of let's say a brand new, an ulti, it's just great that they don't have an option to do their Hound Blade shenanigans. So very strong as a one of, I found. Urashima as another big idiot. This is the biggest idiot for sure. I did not play him all day until the very end. He was just a 1k counter. It's just really awkward. It doesn't really feel like a time. Only if it's a last resort do I want to play this guy. He gets removed by so many things, which is also why we're not running 7-cost Captain Kidd. Although I will say that this is really good into the mirror match, and that is the one time that I played it was against another Pluffy player. Then we're running 3 of the 9-drop 10k Rush Kaido. This card needs no introduction. It's been my favorite card since the game started, before I even played competitively, just amongst friends using the starter decks. I just love the principle of this card of being able to remove a 6-cost character and then swinging. Rush is just inherently fun. I think most people can agree. So having that in purple and being the boss, I was yeah, I do really want to run this deck. There are many times though I find that it's not necessarily the win condition. It can seal you out games for sure. Having just another body that can attack in and of itself is very strong against Sakazuki, but there are ways just to, for a Nell, for example, I usually just hold on to this until the very, very end, and there's a good reason to KO blocker. I can't go for game, I want to go for board, pop one character, and then, swing into another character. Clearing the board is really strong. If I'm going for game, usually it's just going wide. I feel like that is extremely effective, and Kaido's the cherry on top to punish them if they put something out there, turn character sideways that they shouldn't too early. So yeah, those are all the characters that we usually summon. Now we're going to go into all the 2Ks, which I run a lot of. I believe I run 14, so we're starting off with 2 Frenosuke. I never once tried to use his rush effect. I've heard of many people stealing games by using that effect. I'm not really sure how you get to that point. I mean, Sakazuki's the only time maybe, and need one more hit with it now. I don't know. It just didn't come up for me. It's never come up for me in any testing. Probably the 2K that I would switch. Then I run 4 Miss Double Finger. She's able to ramp you when you really have no other options. And I also just find her a great trigger body against Sakazuki. So you just have something else that can poke at his life or at his rested brand news. Against Zoro, it's really strong. Khalifa, This is Kid at home, or sorry, this is Queen at home, being able to, when it attacks, Don -1, draw 2, trash 1. I play this if I have a Kid blocker in hand, and I know that I'm not Don minusing for card draw every turn. Those, like, there are definitely instances where it's really strong. Like, there's been times where, like, I place a Khalifa and for the reason it sticks because they don't think it's a threat, and then all of a sudden I'm just drawing infinite, especially during the late game, because there's usually more things that, let's say, yeah, a soccer player wants to get rid of, and Khalifa isn't really that high value, or at least maybe they don't see it as high value as they should, and I'm just drawing so much against Anel. I'm just stalling out, drawing. But those are ideal scenarios, and usually it doesn't work, and it's just a 2k counter. Then I guess maybe the most important 2k counter, and is quintessential in every list, is playing for Alti to pair with that page 1, getting 2 bodies for 4 Dawn, and then Dawn -1. Obviously incredibly strong. Not as good as and Holly, unfortunately, but it's still, I mean, any opportunity to flood the board. We already do such a good job of going to 10 Dawn really quickly. You play 3 characters on one turn, and you 10 Dawn turn, you play Captain Kid, and then Ulti, page 1. All of a sudden, you got 2 6Ks, 1 5K, a Dawn back that you can swing with your leader to that turn. It's just so strong into an L. The 4 events we run, 3 Jet Gatling for those non-counters. We have King, Magellan, Polly. Sometimes in the Kaidos you don't want in your hand because it's not doing anything. That's just a great way to go. Plus 3,000 in power. And then we do run the 1 Sheep's Horn as a tech, mostly for the Sokka matchup, but also the Mirror. It's great resting 5 cost blockers that we usually couldn't get around. Now let's move on to matchups real quickly. 9 rounds, 2 of which were on the VOD, so I'll be using footage for that. But just to go over the overall list, we went Sokka, into an L, into Sokka, into an L, into Sokka, Sokka, an L. I don't have another card in my bulk. Sokka, Pluffy. That was the lineup. And starting off with Sakazuki, there was 2 repairs, and it was like a red-green law, maybe even and then like a red-purple law, just random, or maybe not random. It's just not what I was expecting. I was expecting this guy a lot, and sure enough, repaired into him, and I was sad. I see his deck; it's fully tricked out with all the championship Borsalinos and Kuzans, alternate everything. He got the regional top mat. He seemed like he knew what he was doing, and yeah, I mean, he knows what he's doing. We were just able to squeak out the win, though, because he placed 4-cost Kuzan on his second turn. I think even went first, so played that on his 4 Dawn turn, asking me, do I have Poly? And I did have Poly. And then from there, it went for maybe 1 more turn, and he scooped really early. Like, he had 2 life, good hand size. He just I guess maybe bricked or something. I'm not really sure. Like, he was showing me what he had. It didn't seem hopeless though. Like, I wasn't going to kill him anytime soon. There's card draws, cycles, his life. I'm not sure, but the Kuzan. I mean, whenever I get the Poly pop on Kuzan against Sakazuki, I feel on top of the world. I feel so favored. You're a really nice guy though. Really nice guy. I think he just misplayed there. Second round, Anel. Now I'm always happy to see an Anel. It is definitely favored in Pluffy's favor, the way that we're able to go wide and slowly whittle down his life comfortably. Of course, we're scared of Thunderbolts and things like that, but it is, in this game, it was not even close, just because he wasn't able to assemble a board while I was, and the game ended really quickly. Third round, we played against another Sakazuki, and he just got, I don't know, he got steamrolled in this one. Just didn't seem the right pieces and allowed me to pressure his life really quickly, and he never came back from that. He was always on the back foot. That's how I wish every Sakazuki matchup went. Anel, again, we got pretty lucky here. We're usually, I guess I'd say as a game plan, I try to go first in every matchup except for Sakazuki. Yeah, next round when it gets at Anel, whiffed on his Ohm Search. I love to see that. I went wide as usual, and he just had no good triggers. He just got pretty unlucky, and that's, I guess, sometimes how it goes for yellow. Fifth round, I'm starting to get nervous in the fifth round. Another Sakazuki. I mean, eventually my luck's gonna run out. Like, everyone always says, oh, this is a triangle format. Sakazuki, destroys Purple Luffy destroys Enel against Sokka. I don't know, this one again, he had no tempo. I chose to go first, I played Magellan turn 2, and he doesn't remove it immediately, which is a huge tell. He didn't bottom deck it, which I feel like I can really get greedy with the matchup and just, I don't know, take control before he can start stabilizing. And it was a pretty easy W again. Another Sakazuki. And this one, man, Law was the MVP. I had an absolutely disgusting hand rip on him a few turns in. I think on turn 3. It was, yeah, or turn 4. And it just took out all of his cost reduction. I took out Hound Blaze and Ice Age. Or, yeah, Great Eruption and Ice Age. And then from there, he couldn't modulate my characters enough to really affect all the 5 costs I was putting on the board. His Lucci's and Hound Blazes were just so less good because they're only removing one thing at a time. Well, Hound Blaze obviously can only remove one thing, but Lucci can only target one character to KO, and it just wasn't enough. And yeah, hey, rather be lucky than good. Rather be lucky than good. Just simply take out the cards that he needs to play. That's all you need to do. 7th round, we were facing against Anel once again. He was the last Anel in the undefeated section of this tournament, and it was definitely close. This one was a close one, but I chip away at his hand size. I don't go for lethal until I feel extremely comfortable, just being cautious that one trigger can set back the entire game plan. I'm not sure exactly what he has in hand, like maybe he bricked on high cost characters, or is it a bunch of counter to punish me for being greedy? I only went for lethal when I realized that his hand size was so low that just swinging 7 over and over, and as long as, actually, well, really at that point, I just remember having so many characters that no trigger will save him. So that was the first 7 rounds, and now let's move on to the gameplay footage.
Alright, this is editing purposefully coming in and realizing that this video is way too long, so we're going to upload the gameplay footage in separate videos. Coming up next, we'll do the semifinals and the finals. Yeah, make sure to stay tuned for that. For now, peace out. Have a good one.